Welcome to another episode of Behind the Business presented by Gore Mutual. I'm your host, Ian McLean, President and CEO of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce. This podcast is recorded on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. Each week I sit down for candid conversations where we go beyond the boardroom and behind the business to uncover the real stories of Waterloo Region's business community. Today's conversation is all about the future of manufacturing, innovation, and the evolving challenges and opportunities facing businesses across Ontario and Canada's Innovation Corridor. Joining us today is Aaron Toplician from Excellence in Manufacturing Consortium, also known as EMC. Aaron brings more than a decade of experience working across advanced robotics, software, AI, and cybersecurity, and now works directly with manufacturers across Southern Ontario to help them navigate growth, workforce pressures, technology adoption, competitiveness, and long-term resilience. We'll talk about Aaron's own career journey into manufacturing and technology, what he's hearing from manufacturers right now, where the sector is headed, and why partnerships and collaboration are becoming more important than ever. We'll also dive into the new partnership between EMC and the Greater KW Chamber around this year's Manufacturing Summit, and what that means for manufacturers across Waterloo Region, Guelph, Cambridge, and the broader Innovation Corridor. Join me in this episode as we go behind the business with Aaron Toplician. Well, we're excited to have you here today, Aaron. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Ian.
We've been working, we've known each other for quite a while. We've been working on our Manufacturing Summit for quite a long while, and our two organizations are working closer and closer, which is great. But your background, you've worked across a number of different aspects, and now you're kind of in manufacturing, but you've worked in robotics and in software, AI, and cybersecurity, all which are, different, sectors, if you will, on the surface, but they're all involved in manufacturing. So what first drew you toward manufacturing and industrial innovation, and how did that lead to EMC? Because on the surface, you're a tech guy. Yeah. You're a tech guy, but now you're working for Excellence in Manufacturing Consortium and working with frontline manufacturers and supply chain day in and day out. How did that all come together?
Yeah, well, good question. It's a bit of a runaround story, but I think it all truly started when I was a kid. One of my favorite shows to watch with my dad was How It's Made. I just love seeing how things were made. And then the first job I had at a university was with a company called Fastenal. Most manufacturers know it quite well. So I was that guy in the truck going to manufacturer to manufacturer and making sure they had their nuts and bolts and supplies. So I got my first real experience understanding, especially in the local facilities, because I was born and raised here in Kitchener. So I was working the territory down Victoria Road in the Binghamans area. So that was my first taste of manufacturing. And then many years later, I got involved with ClearPath Robotics and worked with the Automotors division, which is specific. They call them autonomous mobile robots, but they are made for material handling. So once again, I found myself in factories pretty much every day of the week looking to see if
that could be warehousing or manufacturing facilities, and these are unpiloted, kind of like forklifts, but high-tech forklifts, going and getting materials, bringing them back and forth, which was clearly the uses of ClearPath are mining and manufacturing, and so a lot of that is traditional businesses where that new technology was most prevalent.
Yeah, and absolutely, and specifically when you're working with the technology that's truly innovative and the first of its kind, generally speaking, the first to adopt are your Fortune 500, your Toyota Manufacturing, the really large companies that have the R&D departments and the capacity and the budget to look at a business case like that. So I was really fortunate to get in there in my mid-20s. And
you still look like you're in your mid-20s.
I know. I'm 35 now, but I try to look young, and then COVID hit, pandemic hit, and bittersweet. Technology like that tends to do well when you have people not able to connect. But I decided to move to Vancouver, to BC, with my now wife. And while I was there, the organization I was working with was in cybersecurity, IT, AI, and we actually partnered with EMC. So I was on the other side of the fence, if you will, a community partner out in the BC Consortium. And that's how I got to know and love EMC. And, after we got married, my wife saying, everybody lives back home in KW. So we made the difficult decision of coming back, but we don't regret it one bit. And I was looking kind of for my next chapter and saw that they were hiring for this position and was a true advocate for the organization. So that's how we got it.
You come by it honestly. So for people outside the industry or outside of manufacturing is sometimes seen as traditional or old school. And I think the argument now, particularly in Canada, is there is no old school manufacturing left in North America anymore. If you're a manufacturer, you are by definition advanced manufacturing, because it's precision automation, it's using technology, it's value added in the manufacturing process. Like, we don't do hinges for folding chairs anymore. That is done somewhere else across the world. So when you're immersed in that every day, of the types of companies you're dealing with are precision automation, for a variety of things, aerospace, auto, anything that's being done is the value chain and the precision of it, and the investment that needs to be done in it, both on the staffing side but also technology. When you're immersed in that every day, what do people misunderstand beyond what I've just described? I mean, of how manufacturing is, for all intents and purposes, with the technology, you're a high tech company that makes stuff. Like, I think it's the intersection of technology and manufacturing.
Yeah, no, once again, another great question. What I would say to people is, especially if they have that mindset that, it's a very old school and very manual process, that's changed for many years now, even back in my ClearPath days in the mid 2010s. Most of Canadian manufacturer, in order to compete, needs to be advanced manufacturing, needs to have really solid, lean, best practices figured out if they're going to be able to survive just in the rising costs. So manufacturers are usually one of the first to adopt technology as well. So when I look at other sectors, you could look at construction, you could look at agriculture, you could look at banking. Most are very hesitant to take on a new technology or until it's tried, tested, and proven for the right reasons, right? Manufacturers are constantly in an innovative mode, constantly in a continuous improvement mode. So the result of that, especially here in our region in Ontario and the Canadian manufacturing sector, is they're always thinking about that and the future and investing when they can. One of the challenges still, even in that regard, is primarily, if you look at sub 500 employees, that's 99.3% of manufacturers here, right? So they have to look at solutions and ways. So I encourage anybody, if you want to see what modern manufacturing looks like, reach out. Most manufacturers are opening their doors to do tours, to show the community. That's part of what we do at EMC, is to help facilitate that, especially for those younger folks, because it's really cool.
Well, and the jobs that are available, these are not dirty frontline, many of those jobs used to be truly blue collar. You're really mostly dealing with robotics and computers and precision equipment to do whatever manufacturing process.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, when you think about, or people may not be familiar with what Excellence in Manufacturing Consortium does. And we've been at a long-standing relationship with EMC over the years here at the Chamber. I think we're now I've been here 17 years, so it's got to be, I think we're into our 15th or 16th Manufacturing Summit, which we started way back when. We worked with Manufacturing Innovation Network, which was a sort of region of Waterloo organization. We had the Center for Family Business, which family-owned businesses, but many of them, part of that group, were manufacturing or related, and the chamber. And then we connected with Excellence Manufacturing Consortium because that was your bread and butter, day in and day out, dealing with delivering education and having those relationships in a way that we don't. Because our members cover soup to nuts, not all manufacturers. So we've had this long relationship, but many people don't know what EMC is. Give us what does EMC do?
Sure.
And why is it important to have this network that you're bringing together? And it's not just in Kitchener-Waterloo. I mean, we have folks that are participating in the manufacturing summit that we put on recently from all over southwestern Ontario. So talk about what EMC is, why it's important, and how the network really supports manufacturers, not only across southern Ontario, but across Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. So at its core, EMC is a non-for-profit organization that started almost 30 years ago. I think we're at the cusp of the 30-year mark. And it started with the mission then, and it's still our mission today. We exist because we want to have Canadian manufacturing be globally competitive. And our belief on how to do that is through sharing best practices, peer-to-peer collaboration, creating a consortium and a network where we can bring fellow manufacturers into the same rooms, whether it be virtually at a forum, at the manufacturing summit, to discuss common problems and challenges and to find solutions as a community. Because a lot of people, when they think manufacturing, IP, we can't share that. Well, we're not asking for that. Nobody needs to share what makes them competitive and what their special sauce is. But all manufacturers right now are dealing with the 232 tariffs, for example. All manufacturers are dealing with changing immigration policies, for example. And so when they have their peers that they're able to collaborate, whether it is in the people and culture sense or at a senior leadership level, trying to build capacity, there's always a need to work amongst your peers and to find innovative ways to solve common problems. That's really the core of what we do. From that, of course, we've really branched out into many different, pillars of how we support our manufacturers. By and large, we're a grassroots organization. So there's other organizations out there that are lobbying in Ottawa that are doing what is necessary from call it a law or bill passing. We come to your door and we work with you face to face and understand what challenges and support do you need or opportunities do you have that we can hopefully help with. And that comes in the way of supporting with co-op placements and training. Since 2020, we've placed over 5,900 students with manufacturers across Canada, something like $36 million back into the pockets of the manufacturers. Training, as you mentioned earlier, so we have partially funded, community-led training workshops that can really support AI being the big one right now that a lot of manufacturers are getting behind. And then we also have a really good way to benchmark. So both our government partners kind of rely on us to say, hey, what is the data to support, the industry that we should be looking to invest in, right? So EMC's done a really great job just by being a grassroots organization of getting that data collected. We're even doing a large project with the federal government right now in all the sectors. It's an LMI or labor market information project we were selected to do. And again, that's us working amongst the other sectors to see what are the common challenges that the government really needs to pay attention to.
And I think that one of the advantages is, you're national in some respects, but the connection between our chambers is at the grassroots level. We have manufacturers here, everyone from Toyota right down to supply chain folks that are in the auto space or in the supply chain for manufacturing. But the network that we have through the Ontario Chamber and the Canadian Chamber on sort of that policy, national, international, provincial policy. And then what you do on that, because we don't have, that's your bread and butter is being on the shop floor each and every day, because we're not for profit just like you are. So the relationship, I think, is a wise one, because I don't really think there's a lot of duplication over what we do, which is why the relationship we have with the manufacturing summit here in Waterloo Region is so important. So let's drill down. I mean, our members, your members, and the manufacturing space, they're all dealing with some of the things you talked about. Talent is a huge issue of having the right types of people for the right types of jobs. And in the manufacturing space, that's still, for the most part, skilled jobs specific. We're all dealing with tariffs, whether it's the blanket tariffs, the 232 tariffs, whether it's Donald Trump woke up in a bad mood tariffs, who knows? Energy costs, supply chain issues, economic uncertainty. We're all facing that because people got questions, and there's probably less answers than there are questions. So they're being hit from every direction. What are they feeling most intensely now, and how do we, because we can't answer everything, how do we kind of get our arms around the things that are most immediate to them actually running their business? Because that's what we're trying to do, because there's some things like, I don't know when Donald Trump is going to wake up and understand that he's hurting his own economy. Yeah. But what can we manage now? How can we help people through it? I think that's kind of where when we've discussed these things as it relates to the manufacturing summit, we got the same. Our members on both Chamber and EMZ are asking the same types of questions.
Yeah. Well, that's again another great question, and even to come back to why this connection and partnership works so well. So to your exact point, Ian, we live, breathe, die manufacturing. Like, we are a consortium for manufacture, but manufacturers need other services. They need accountants. They need lawyers. They need folks helping and servicing, and they need to connect with the community, right? Because the community is where the talent comes from, right? So it's a perfect complementary between our two organizations, and with all the chambers across Canada, with us being a national organization. But to tackle the question you had, it's definitely a tough one to answer with all the challenges happening. When I look at it let's just look at it from a sector-wide, so not just automotive, food and beverage, injection, all of manufacturing. The common problem that I hear, and we just heard it last week, we had a roundtable of senior leadership here in the Guelph area. They have to turn down orders, some of them, because they don't have the labor. They don't have the skilled trades. There is a big challenge and struggle, and we've known this for years. We've known that, hey, the previous generation is going to be sunsetting soon and going to be retiring, and the backfill never happened. And so what scares me a little bit or keeps me a little bit up at night is hearing that from our manufacturing partners that say, I have to stop taking orders right now because I can't fulfill them. And you'd be surprised actually how resilient and busy people have gotten even after what the man down south has done to our global trade. So that, to me, is the smoking gun. Is we're struggling to find the skilled labor to replace these. So
the Behind the Business podcast is made possible through the support of our title sponsor, Gore Mutual. Proudly Canadian, Gore Mutual has stayed true to one purpose for more than 185 years: insurance that does good. It's the reason they exist. They believe that when we focus on being good, doing good, and spreading good, we all thrive together. We're grateful for their continued commitment to our local communities and the positive impact they make every day. For more information, visit goremutual.ca. Yeah, and that's a problem writ large. Whether you think about housing, whether you think about we're going to grow in this part of the world in Waterloo Region to 1 million people in 25 years. That's a whole lot of infrastructure. 70,000 homes, new hospital, LRT.
For sure.
We've got the land assembly and saying where the next 100,000 jobs come from, because most of them don't exist right now. Either the businesses don't exist or the technology doesn't exist. But a lot of those are going to be manufacturing related. But we got the same issue of manufacturing that we have in skilled trades. It's like, do we have enough skilled trades to actually build the stuff that we need to so we can be successful and create the jobs? So there are challenges, and that's why skilled trades and having the right types of people being trained for the jobs. And for the most part, they're well-paying jobs. There'll be stable jobs. And so it is a challenge, but thank goodness that you're working on it at EMC and we are as
Trying.
well. One thing that we hear from particularly smaller manufacturers, and this is the part where people think manufacturing, it can be sometimes saying, hey, Toyota. Well,
Right.
of course, there's, they have 75 or 8,500 direct employees, and then they probably in Waterloo Region between Woodstock and Cambridge, the supply chain's probably another 7,000 or 8,000 jobs. I mean, you got 16,000 people that are directly related to that one company. But for the most part, manufacturers are what I would say a small business.
100%.
And, if you use Stats Canada, we never kind of say 500 is not a small business, but for purposes of, standalone companies, most of our members are small businesses for the most part. So if those small businesses, they want to innovate, you touched on this before, but don't always know where to start. Like what is the advice that EMC's given them? Because some people say, well, innovate and AI is ChatGPT. Well, that's true. There could be process improvements. AI can be valuable on a number of different fronts. But where do you suggest for manufacturers, and this was part of our discussion at the Manufacturing Summit, is how do people leverage AI? Where do they go? How do they start?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think with AI and even just in general, like you just mentioned, if it's a process improvement or it's a way to innovate and do something differently that's going to be more efficient, it'll have a higher yield. Where to start is always with the problem, right? And it requires pen and paper, whiteboard, understanding like where are the bottlenecks in this value stream, where are the bottlenecks here. But let's just assume they've gotten past the pen and paper part, and they're looking at the solution. What I've noticed on the technology side, which is fantastic, is what used to cost a manufacturer, let's just say tens of thousands of dollars for a very high-tech vision system that's going to pinpoint exactly where the discrepancies are within the material of whatever they're trying to create. That now is a few $1,000s, right? Because of
So the cost of technology is coming down.
So the cost of the technology is coming down. Now, throwing technology at a problem doesn't mean it's going to solve it, right?
Still need people.
You still need people.
Still need the process.
Correct. You nailed it. But where to start with AI? I think and again, this kind of comes back to why I love EMC and what EMC does is, if you think of something that you want to invest in, whether you're a small manufacturer or a small business, chances are your local peers have already gotten there. And like I said before, most folks are very willing to say, hey, you're looking at that? Yes, we just invested in a vision system that utilizes AI, or I'm going to tell you the pitfalls that nobody told me when I went through this. So it always comes back to, once you've gotten to that point where this looks like it's going to be the solution for us, we've done the math, we've done the homework, reach out to a peer or reach out to an organization like EMC or the chamber to say, hey, do you know anybody that's invested in this type of system, and can I talk to them? Absolutely. And I think that is the best. I wish more businesses did that, because again, we're all in this together. We're a community of businesses. Sure, we might compete on making the same things once in a while, but we're really here to be a large manufacturing sector together, right?
It's one of the things that Next Generation Manufacturing, which is the super cluster of trying to bring manufacturers saying, how do we jointly kind of improve and take the manufacturing writ large in Ontario and Canada and get it to that next level internationally. One of the things that I remember as we were going through saying, is that the bet we should make for Southwestern Ontario at the time? This was, I guess it was during, I can't remember what it is. I think it was during COVID or the beginning of COVID.
Yeah.
And part of that was manufacturers, in some cases when we talked about it, saying, well, how do we get around the intellectual property? Well, 80% of a lot of manufacturing it's like you can't get there without doing the same 80%.
Correct.
The difference between widget maker A and widget maker B may be the last 20%. The precision piece that they've done, the materials that they use, the quality, and it's the last 20%. So we do have this opportunity to kind of work collaboratively and say a healthy advanced manufacturing sector in Canada, we should all be working towards as individual business owners and organizations, because it pays off for all of us.
Right.
which leads us to AI, because AI is one of those things everyone, and we hear this all the time, like in every business sector of the chamber, small business, services, manufacturing, agriculture, everyone knows they need to be doing more with AI. But what? Right? So there's excitement and there's some fear about that. What's it going to do to jobs? What's my workforce going to look like? How do you how does EMC approach AI when you're talking to your members of saying, when you think about AI, here's how you should approach it, because they are looking for advice, someone to kind of pat them on the back and say it's going to be okay, and here are the things you need to do in terms of sequentially and steps that they can say we can see the benefit of AI on something that they're probably not expert on right now.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's I really like that question, because EMC is already we saw this about a year ago as an organization and reached out, and again, EMC works with community partners that are subject matter experts. And so we've partnered with AI subject matter experts to build what we call boot camps, advanced workshops for manufacturers, which essentially, in a nutshell, allows them to create their own AI agents that are data sovereign, so the data stays on site. So again, the pitfalls or things to look out if you're just a business considering AI, and my background kind of exposed me to this, is it first starts with your security protocols within your IT infrastructure. And I'll use an example. Let's say that isn't set up correctly and you don't have an Active Directory and permission group set up. Well, if you launch Copilot or an AI within your Microsoft system, maybe an entry-level position person could say, I wonder what Ian makes every year. And if that's exposed, it could bring out that information, right? So security is always the first thing you got to start with and to make sure. But coming back to how EMC, we're excited about it. Like, there's definitely a fear in terms of where AI can go, I think, on a macro sense. But manufacturers are embracing it because they've already embraced it years ago when it comes to their operational technology. As I mentioned earlier, you have vision systems working along and artificial intelligence to automate a quality check, right? To do it at a pinpoint accuracy down where the material comes in way before it even gets to the line, saving them thousands and thousands of dollars because it didn't go through the process. They were able to catch it earlier. It's just an example. But the large language models, the ChatGPT, the Copilot, this type of AI, it's really useful when it comes to business operations. So an example, again, would be anything where, it takes a few hours out of your day to do some data entry. You're getting information from an email, from, let's say, an invoice or, a payment remittance if you're in finance. Well, if you train the AI and you set it up correctly, it can automate that. So all you're doing is a check to make sure those things went in correctly to the database. It's just one of many examples. So from a business operation sense, AI is going to do wonders for teams. It's going to allow for teams to operate more lean. It's going to allow for an increase in output. It's going to allow for people to focus on the things that matter most and that do require the human touch, as you will, right? It's all those mundane tasks could now get automated. But again, where do you start? Start with making sure you've got the right security. Mm-hmm. Look at who an expert could be that you trust, and again, we're always happy to support.
Well, one of the things I was giving a speech at the Project Management Institute, and there was someone from Toyota there talking about AI because it was one of the questions that came up, and what I found interesting said, we don't, at least in Toyota, we don't see that there's going to be any job loss.
Yeah.
What they said is some of the new jobs will not be. You won't do more of the same because you still need people on the front lines to manage the AI. But those, what I would say, entry-level, mundane type jobs won't be more of those.
Yeah.
But there'll be more jobs in managing the technology in other aspects, like how AI is used. And so that's people have to train differently, but they're also probably more exciting and interesting jobs.
Absolutely.
Which was it was a good take on AI. Doesn't have to be scary. It's going to be changed, but it doesn't mean that we're giving up. Human beings will always have to be part of the process. All leads to, we've spent a lot of time getting ready for the manufacturing summit on Friday, May 22nd. We're hosting that along with you and some others, partners at Bingaman's. Thrilled that EMZ is co-hosting it with this event with us this year, and your involvement, and Jason and the gang has been great, wonderful. Why are events and partnerships like the one that we're doing a couple of weeks from, or 10 days from now, right now more important than ever for manufacturers and industry leaders?
Yeah, great question. Again, it's exactly what I was mentioning before, in terms of that connectivity, right? And again, the partnership side, Canada has this problem that we're looking to solve at EMC with most Canadian businesses, manufacturers, businesses as a whole, don't know what's in their backyard in terms of a potential partner, supplier, etc. And that's been going on for quite some time. A lot of people, before the man down south decided to disrupt everything, had their vendors, suppliers coming globally and didn't even bat an eye because orders were coming in. They didn't need to double check anything. Now resilience in supply chain is needed more than ever. And in order to be supply chain resilient, you need to have local partners in the event that global trade gets cut off or becomes too expensive, which we're experiencing right now in a lot of factors. So these types of events really allows you to see who is in your backyard, who is in your region from a business to business perspective. Oh, you make widget A? Hey, I need widget A, for example. And so we're actually doing this with EMC. We're creating a platform, if you will, digital platform that's going to allow manufacturers to put up their process capabilities, put up all the details about what they make, how they make it, what they're capable of doing, what their advantageousness is for seeking new business, because we noticed this problem again over a year ago. So events like this really allow to see who's in your backyard, to make those connections that are going to be much more needed as we keep continuing through this or navigating this trade challenge globally.
So we talked quite a bit about technology and AI, and I think that's an important one. But if there was one trend in manufacturing that businesses should be paying closer attention to over the next couple of years, because we still have the uncertainty of tariffs. Trump's going to be there whether we like it or not for another 3 years.
Yep.
Even when if the Democrats were to win, it's not clear to me that they're any more free traders than so there's going to be some change. But that resiliency in supply chains, to me, is actually, it encompasses everything.
Yeah.
You're going to have people that are on the same wavelength and talking the same language on technology platforms. Your supply chains, the more local, the better, because it's a very uncertain world. And we're seeing that in the Straits of Hormuz, whether it's oil, other things being shipped, critical minerals, and things from that affect everything from microchips to, it's bizarre how integrated the world is. So is that resiliency in supply chains for the Canadian manufacturing space really the thing we got to pay attention to make sure that that regardless of what happens, that there is an ability to make sure we have the pieces for the manufacturing industry?
In my belief, I think it's definitely something that all businesses, entrepreneurial mindset people can pay attention to now. It's what I'm seeing in the camaraderie amongst the manufacturers in my roundtables, smaller events, day-to-day, is we're finally looking and saying, and it starts with that data, and again, that's why we're trying to figure out who's in our backyard and giving folks the ability to see that themselves. It's now, what can we make here? And if you look at the global trade numbers, I can't remember the totals, but let's just say it's in the tens of billions, which it is, of all these different parts are coming in from the US, right? And they're coming in from China, and they're coming in. Now, there's certain things we can't compete on, even coming from, China or India and these places, and that's fine. But there is a lot of things being made down south, specifically in steel and aluminum, that we can compete on here and at a better rate. So just like our grocery stores, whereas us as Canadians said, hey, we're going to buy Canadian, what I'm seeing as a trend is we're going to get there industrially soon. It's happening. Again, we're not going to compete with the tens of millions of nuts and bolts from a global supplier like China, because for the price we get the material, we can get a finished good from them at scale. But it's all these other things, all these more complex and larger scaled propane tanks, for example. We import most of those from the U.S. Why? We could totally do it here, right?
It's particularly when we supply them with the aluminum and the steel, and then they finish, which has always been one of the issues here in Canada is drawers of water, hewers of wood, sending material somewhere else, letting them finish, and then buying them back at the inflated or at the finished price. Really important, commentary there, and I think no one is suggesting. Certainly, the chamber movement is not suggesting that we're not doing business with the U.S., but we can't be 77% of our trade there because we've just seen what happens when you're so reliant. You are held hostage or could be held hostage. Diversifying that actually pays lots of dividends. Is that there's a reason why you can't let your best customer or treat them like they're not your best customer, which is what's happening with the U.S.
100%.
now.
And to your point, it's, hey, we're still going to have that, but let's compete.
Yeah.
And that only benefits us as the consumer. If now we're competing, creates the jobs, creates the opportunity within our economy. It builds our economy up, our local GDPs, and it allows for a competition with these parts that we weren't competing on before. So it starts with knowing what we can make here, right? Knowing who's already making it or not, seeing those opportunities, and going for it. And I think that's what I'm seeing in hearing, at least. It's already happening in some degree, but I think that's something everybody should kind of pay attention to, especially if you are an entrepreneurial person. You want to understand, hey, what could be my next avenue here?
Well, and doing more finished products where the value chain, we're getting higher up the value chain, is only good for our social programs and for people in jobs and for everything else. So is that what, as you look ahead, is that what excites you most about the future of manufacturing in Ontario and across Canada? Is that opportunity to get further? So supply chain important, right?
Yep.
Supply whatever you're doing. But we look at, when you think of, as two examples, auto, when you've got Toyota and Honda that are doing it from the ground up, under pressure right now, but aerospace, another one, where you've got all the materials and we've got the technology. Those are real opportunities, are they not, for Canada to do even more of the value chain in those industries?
Yeah, absolutely. And the nice part of it is the federal government is investing in that and providing available funding. And we're already seeing a big spike. We just recently had our defense forum in Vaughan at the end of April. But I always put a caution there. And again, where it matters, talking to your peers that have already gone through those certifications is really beneficial and of value, so that you just know what you're going to get into if you are considering this, because there are definitely red tape and hoops and bounds. But yes, that investment's happening already in terms of these sectors. And what excites me is that, back to when I was a kid watching how things are made, well, it feels great when it's made in your backyard and you can be proud of it, right? So I think manufacturing is going to come back, and it's different. It's not, the past of the automotive back in the day when we had Buds here and Kitchener and, we still have Toyota and Honda, like you said, but it's going to move to other things. And I think we can all be proud as, Canadians, as Kitchener-Waterloo and the region of Waterloo residents, to say, hey, let's make it here, right?
Well, there's going to be lots of that Buy Canadian, which I don't think is a passing fad when you think about industrial policy, when you think about national defense policy and buying not only submarines and planes, but all of the things that are going to be required to, take more ownership and responsibility, which we should in national defense. There's a huge opportunity to build lots of different things domestically when you know that there's going to be money in the marketplace for it. So,
absolutely.
Listen, we're almost out of time. Appreciate you spending some of your day with us. But this is, it's great to hear your story and the EMC story, but as much as I think it's about leadership, and we ask the same questions of leaders that come and are brave enough to do the podcast with me. So just before we do run out of time, if I was to ask you these rapid fire questions, from a leadership perspective, what would you tell your younger self if you could go back and give yourself some advice?
Be more involved in the community, volunteer, get to know the community a lot better, and help. That would be probably my one I would look back at.
I think that's a great comment, because it can also, the benefit of that is it actually can lead you to your next job or your next opportunity, and you have the benefit of providing skills to help your community, which is great. Okay, who are, as you've gone through your career or life, who or what has inspired you most along the way?
My wife.
Yeah?
Yeah, she's always there. She's coaching me before I get nervous on a podcast. She's always the best person in my corner when needed, through thick and thin, and everything she does inspires me. So I'd say my wife.
You got to have someone in your corner. That's a good one. If you weren't now, this is a strange question because you've done lots of things. You look like you're about 12, but you've done a series of things in your current career. If you weren't doing what you're doing now with EMC, what would you think you would be doing instead? So you kind of came through technology and then manufacturing. You're now kind of leading groups of businesses. What would you be doing if you weren't in your current job?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I grew up in a construction family, and I'm passionate about building community and building spaces for community. So I think I would be in that realm.
You'd be construction guy.
Yeah,
that's good.
I think so. I'm a failed musician, so I can't say that as an answer.
Yeah. I'm a failed singer because I don't have a good voice, but I like music. What are you reading, a book or listening to a podcast? What are the things that you do to kind of either put it down and let your mind rest, or to kind of challenge yourself?
Yeah, so podcast-wise, I got hooked about a year or two ago. Have you ever heard of the Diary of a CEO podcast?
Yeah. A couple of people have mentioned that.
Yeah, it's a good one. It varies a lot. So that'll usually be running when I'm doing an activity, going on a run or doing a walk. Book-wise, actually, funny enough, we joke about it, but I'm learning how to write better lyrics. It's
wow.
Yeah, it's a music book by Pat Pattinson's. That's the thing I have right now on my desk. Yeah.
Well,
still trying.
You gotta get both sides of your brain going, right?
Exactly.
Okay. You live in town. What's one of your favorite local businesses? So coffee shop, restaurant, music hall, whatever. Which one of your favorite places?
There's so many, but one of the first things I did when I moved back was I went to Vincenzo's and got a sandwich. Vincenzo's, my grade 8 teacher, shout out to Madame Marskel, her father started Vincenzo's. So Vincenzo's, since my granddad used to take me there as a kid, has always been a staple for me, at least in the Waterloo region.
They lived on Avondale, or at least I think one of the brothers did on Avondale. So when I was a city councillor, I would knock on their door, and we would not talk about local politics. We would talk about Vincenzo's and the story, because it was a great story from when it was in Belmont Village, and then moved over. Yeah. So. If people want to connect with EMC, connect with you, learn more about what EMC does and the role they play in the community, but in particular with manufacturing, where do people find and get in touch with you?
Yeah, EMC-wise, socials, LinkedIn always being the best. We're actively posting. That's my social too, is LinkedIn. So if you want to get in touch with me, LinkedIn. Our website is emccanada.org. Plethora of information on there in terms of the events that are going on, so anybody and everybody can see what we have going on a weekly, daily, monthly basis, and as well as the programs, especially for students that are thinking about getting into skilled trades and manufacturing. Right now there's placement opportunities, and if you're on the manufacturer side, there's funding available to hire these types of students and apprentices. So website's always the best.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. We're excited about the deepening and strengthening relationship we have with the EMC. We're excited about the Manufacturing Summit on Friday, May 22nd.
Damn.
And so we'll look forward to having a great event in the coming days, and then and what comes into the future. So thanks for joining us today and spending some of your busy or your valuable time with us today.
My pleasure, Ian. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Behind the Business, proudly presented by Gore Mutual, insurance that does good. New episodes drop every Thursday, so be sure to tune in next week. You can also visit greaterkwchamber.com to catch up on past episodes anytime. We'll see you next time as we continue to go Behind the Business.